Hello. Welcome and hello out there, YouTube land.
Meow.
I love you. Starting just kind of random open chat channel tonight just to find like-minded, civilized individuals who want to avoid the common, typical online drama, bullying crap. Trying not to want to talk too much about gossipy topics. Ooh, wait a minute. Looks like Mr. Graham started a channel too just now. Ooh. It's annoying because it says he started 45 minutes ago. So I'm going to go and shut this down. Paul, do you know Graham? Let me give you a link to his channel. If you don't mind. He is from Australia. But yeah, he's talking about how and when to judge too. So I don't know. Linked mine or his to his own. I need to link mine to his. There we go. Okay, now I need to cancel the echo, and I'm going to link my StreamYard to here. Mr. Paul, if you feel like talking. I'm not wanting to talk about the normal YouTube poop. I'm annoyed and I want to avoid drama. I want to just find people that want to just talk about regular stuff for a difference. I'm kind of brokenhearted basically over some continuing drama, among other even, allegedly confessing Christians and whatnot. So I wanted to avoid that. Just talk about things for real. Talk about, anything else other than all the normal bickering crap we do. So if you got a topic, I would love to entertain it as long as we stay civilized and don't try to beat each other up too much.
What if I want to be feral?
Uh-oh. Feral Mrs. Joel.
Rawr.
Oh. So, yeah. Her. All right. So, yeah. Mrs. Joel is in a strange mood.
Heck yeah. Did it work this time?
I don't know. What's your objective?
We'll see. Maybe not.
Trying to get your online order? Yeah. So, yeah, we were going to start a stream on just talking about psychological behaviors and bullying and why people bully on the internet and mobbing behaviors, all that good stuff. But we weren't really excited about it because it just makes the bullies worse. And our daughter overseas called, so we just chatted with her. Had a lovely time for about an hour or so, just kind of backstage, and I encouraged her to see if she wanted to try to join this channel or other channels even down the road. She's on the opposite side of the world, but it's probably good. It's perfect time to talk. They're in the middle of the night, I guess, in America. But regardless, so if you guys might get to hear from her. She's young and about 8 months pregnant right now, so she usually has plenty of really awesome stuff to talk about. She's just a super encourager, and I don't know. It'd be cool to get her interested and want to join sometime soon. I think she's logged off for the day though. Okay, let me just double check. Yeah, she's offline. So, anyways, I want to have fun. I want to be encouraged. I want to encourage others. We can talk about science or religion or whatever people want to talk about, but I want to do it in a fun manner. I don't want to. Yeah.
Well, poor Floyd.
This is Joel's over there having fun in her game community. Keeps trying to drag me into over there.
Huh?
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 What?
What?
Where?
Huh?
Why? You're gorgeous.
No.
You smile. So when she smiles, her whole face smiles.
Stop. Oh my god.
Her eyes smile. It's gorgeous.
What's that?
So there's some side chat there.
Oh,
She's
no.
talking to her friends, but
Well, that's a good one.
distracting as poop.
What's poop?
You're distracting.
Poop?
Don't look at me like that.
I gotta show you that video with that
You have,
dude.
like, triangle-shaped eyes almost. When you look
No.
at me, yeah, when you do that, an intense look. It's really cute. Anyhow, so yeah, you guys give me a topic. I had a little bit of fun on John's channel. Was it last night, I guess? I was after show. After they were done beating each other up about evolution. Bill and SFT and John and what was the guy's name? Sorry if I forget your name, buddies. It's like 2 or 3 other guys. We were talking about the code side of DNA and stuff, and technology stuff. I actually wished we could talk more about. So it was fun, and they're beating up on poor Bill. Hey,
Who that?
Mr. Graham.
G'day, mate.
How you doing, buddy? Welcome. Thanks
Give
for
me
coming
your
over.
Tim Tams.
Uh-oh.
What?
Tim Tams.
Yes.
Sorry, they don't fit.
Oh, man.
She's
That's my luck.
had
Yeah,
an
let me
age-old.
see if I can open it up with this fork here. I'll try and,
This pork. How you doing, darling?
you know, life's been better. Life could be worse.
Yes,
Amen.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So yeah.
Maybe I should go to Mars.
Yeah.
It looks too much like freaking Southern California. You don't want it.
It's a desert. Well, he's in Australia, which is worse.
Mm.
It looks very much like where I live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to tease all my SpaceX friends that Mrs. Joel wouldn't let me go because it looks too much like California.
Because
So she likes Texas.
I like the greeny stuff.
It might be worse than my present life, but it's worth a shot.
Oh, darling.
I mean, you'll get free room and board and stuff. You just have to work.
Too much.
Yep. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, the initial jobs are going to mostly be construction, of course. And then after everything's kind of built and maintained, they're going to look for Paul. Hold on. They're going to look for people to help make intellectual property assets. That's going to be the main economy.
Hey, Mr. Paul. Hi. Haven't seen you in a while, darling. How are you?
Uh-oh.
Oh, can't hear you.
You are muted, Sir Paul.
Your mic's not on, Paul.
Yeah, we are terrible lip readers.
Yeah. I can't lip read.
I knew somebody who was a lip reader. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible how people can do it. It's astounding. Try again, Paul.
Huh?
I said to Paul, try again.
No.
Hey.
Oh.
We're hearing noise. We're hearing some, yeah.
Yep,
I was just saying, his connection seemed good until he turned his audio on. Then
That's why you don't turn your video on. If your internet's a little bit dodgy, turn the video off.
Right.
Because it sucks. Most of the bandwidth is for the video.
Right. I was going to remark how awesome it was to have somebody from Australia, Britain, and America. The 3 parts of the world, 3 sides.
Wow.
There he is. He's coming back.
Yeah, covering most of the globe.
I hear some wind.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's a lot better.
Hey, there he is.
Yeah, because what it is when I connect to the car with the Bluetooth, I don't know why, but the volume is the reception is either terrible, or there's no volume at all. So what I did is I turned the Bluetooth off the car, connected a speaker to it because I'm in the car, and obviously that killed my microphone. So,
all right. I've had
Yep.
some similar troubles with my Bluetooth trying to chat like on these things with my phone. And especially if I get a call. If I get an incoming call, it just knocks me off. It's annoying.
Aw.
Yeah, but whenever I use the Bluetooth in the car for the telephone, it works absolutely fine. But as soon as I try and connect it to StreamYard and use the microphone in the car, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
It may be a flaw of StreamYard, but I'm glad you figured it out, man.
Yeah, what I've had to do is I pulled into a lay-by. I've turned all my Bluetooth off, and I'm just using it through the what they call it, through the speaker on the phone.
Very good. So what time is it for you guys? It's
20 to 6 in the morning for me. I'm just on my way from work. I've just finished the night shift.
nice.
40 minutes after midday.
I got 20 till midnight over here in Tejas.
Texas,
Yep,
y'all. That's great.
You're 13 hours behind me. So, Paul, that's definitely a British accent. Where in England?
Yorkshire. I'm a Yorkshireman.
Yorkshire.
I'm a Yorkshireman, yeah.
Yorkshire.
Yeah. I say what I like, and I like what I bloody well say. That's what
That's right.
saying.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm a Yorkshireman.
I really appreciate you guys coming on tonight because this is exactly what I needed. Just regular folk talking about regular things without all the typical.
Yeah, with all the trash that's going on in
Mhm.
Yes.
a couple of places at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can only give you about 5 minutes of my time. I pulled into lay-by. I'm having a flask of tea. I've got about another, what will it take me to get home from here? About another 20 minutes to get home from here. And then I'll be off to bed.
A Yorkshireman, of course you're drinking tea.
What else is it to drink? You can't beat it, can you, tea?
Yeah, I've only spent about a weekend in London so far, and the remarkable thing was they don't have coffee in the hotel rooms like everywhere else I've been on the planet. They only have tea. Tea and milk.
And to be fair, London is not really a fair representation of what England is like, to be fair.
Yeah.
All right.
You've got to go further north.
Yeah, fair enough. In fact, I told all my friends that the best places that I went to in London was off the beaten trail. It was a bus tour thing, right? So we were seeing all the castles and all the silly things. But so I would break from the crowd and just literally walk down these tiny little roads, walk into a pub. They look at me funny at first, but it was a good time.
Yep.
Well, I'm actually on the east coast of Yorkshire, but just literally, what are we talking? 25 miles behind me is a city called York. Now, if you like old Roman type stuff, they've got a Roman wall that goes around the whole of the city. And inside, I mean, Google this later on, Joel. York, and then look at the old.
Been to York?
Oh, right.
Been to York?
You'll have been to York Minster then, will you?
Yes.
Yeah, that is one hell of a building. Is that York Minster? Yeah, Joel, Google it and see if there'll be some stuff on YouTube. Have a look at some of the videos. That is a really, really old city with the Roman walls all the way around it. Everywhere you go, it's all got something to do with like the Roman era of it. There is what's it called? Needle Street, I think it's called, which is like an old Victorian street with all the shops and everything, and it's not been touched. It's completely left as it was. It's an amazing city.
Yep.
I'm trying to bring up a website, but it's not
it used to be the capital, didn't it? York.
Yes, it did at one point. Yes, and then I think Colchester. I think Colchester was the capital at one point, and then it became London.
Yep, and you had the War of the Roses, and one side was based in York.
Yeah, Yorkshire against Lancashire.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the white rose, they've got the red rose.
Yes, that's right.
That's it, yeah.
All of my ancestry is English, Welsh, Scottish, and Irish. So,
in fact, that combination, that makes you Australian.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Straight away,
yeah.
as soon as you've got that combination, you've got to be Australian.
That's the majority of Australians. There's more of that mix here than anywhere else in the world, and the majority of Australians have that mix.
Yeah.
Yep, and nothing else outside that we found. I was hoping to find something interesting outside that, but we haven't found anything else.
Right.
So this is in Yorkshire, you're saying here, the kind of walls?
That's what. Sorry.
Yeah.
This is what you're talking about? These are pretty impressive.
Yeah, it looks well. I don't know where that is because you're not in the city there, are you? I'm on my phone.
Yeah, you want to be in York, not Yorkshire. So York is the major city in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
So just look for York, the wall. That looks
Yeah,
like
that looks
more
like
like
it might have been the
That's
wall.
even
Yeah.
more impressive.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
And then you've got York Minster. I don't know how old York Minster is, but that's a really impressive building. Is York Minster?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we were only there for a day, but we stopped in and I think it was about a day. We stopped in and saw York Minster. I'm pretty sure I saw those walls, that big, looks like the side of a castle.
Yeah, well, you will have done because to get into, you've got to go through the wall at some point to get to York Minster anyway. So you will have done. The wall completely encircles York city centre.
Yes, good. Yeah, because we walked past that. It's a fading memory because it was 2002, so I'm struggling to remember. And there was so much that happened. I was in London for a month, and then we travelled from London to Scotland. I was in Scotland for a month, and that's when we stopped off in York and a few other places. We stopped in. We were just driving through. Oh, I've forgotten the name of it, but the town where John Bunyan was imprisoned. And as we were driving through the town, I went, John Bunyan Museum, we have to stop there. I didn't even realize that's where we were. So we stopped there. They did some shopping. I went to John Bunyan Museum.
Right. Just a quick one as well about York. Again, Joel, you probably have to Google this because I'm not 100% sure of how accurate I'm going to be on this. But I've been led to believe that York still holds an ancient law that on a Sunday, if there's a Scottish, if a Scotsman is within the city walls of London, he can still be shot with a bow and arrow, something along them lines. I mean, obviously, don't try and get away with it because that law wouldn't.
They wouldn't uphold it. They wouldn't.
No, they wouldn't uphold it. No, but apparently, I do believe that law still stands where you can shoot a Scotsman within the city walls of York, but with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, these were what I mostly saw in London around the Buckingham Palace or whatever.
Oh, there's Buckingham Palace there, yeah.
These gold-tipped fence things. It was just for blocks. These gold-tip lined fences is really impressive.
Yeah, because you're only a few hundred miles from the Scottish border, aren't you?
Oh, not even that. Oh,
not even that. Yeah.
No.
And so it would have been common for Scots to come down and raid or try to invade England because England frequently invaded Scotland. So it's tit for tat.
Yeah. And in fact, I won't even be 100 miles from the Scottish border, I wouldn't have thought.
Less than 100, yep.
Yeah, less than 100. I mean, you're talking Newcastle is just up the road from me. What's Newcastle from it? In fact, Newcastle's probably about 60 miles from here. Something along them lines.
Jesse was asking if that was
heading north, and then from Newcastle. Will it be
Are you familiar with what Jesse's saying? She's the history buff major here. Hadrian, is that how you pronounce it?
Hadrian. Yeah. Hadrian was the emperor in Rome when they built that wall.
Awesome.
That's how far that's sort of the furthest outskirts of the Roman Empire at that time. They didn't extend further than that in any other direction. That's the furthest away from Rome I think you can get.
Yeah. Well, where I live in Scarborough, which is a seaside town on the east coast. And literally just at the back of my house, they're doing some development there. Well, I say just at the back of my house, 500-600 meters behind my house. They're doing some redeveloping, and they've just discovered a massive Roman, whether it's going to be a villa or what the hell it is, I don't know. But yeah, Joel, if you Google Scarborough and put on something like Roman remains, that is literally about 500 meters behind my house.
Please
and
spell it.
it off the top of my head, SCARBOROUGH.
Yep. Scarborough.
Yeah.
Are you going to Scarborough Fair?
Yeah. And yeah, put in Roman find or something like that, and it should come up with where they're digging, literally just behind my house. There's like a big round structure, and then all the walls coming off from it.
So, Paul, what does Scottish borders mean when they say Scottish borders?
Well, that'll just be the border between England and Scotland. So you'll have different counties within Scotland, and they will all border England. I'm assuming that's what it is. I'm not 100% sure.
So, according to this, North Yorkshire to Scottish borders is 103.8 miles.
Right, yeah, but it probably is then, probably about 100 mile then.
167 kilometres.
Right. Yeah, you want to put in, if you search in Scarborough there, you want to put in something like Roman find or something like that. And it's just, they've literally just found it. I don't know what they're going to do, whether they're going to be able to, well, I can't see them being able to actually build on it now, because apparently it's one of the biggest finds that's ever happened.
Oh, yes.
Are you saying find as an F-I-N-D?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, he
accent.
Yeah, so it's my Yorkshire accent.
I understood it.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll translate.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if you've got some specific pictures you like, well, you're on your phone, so.
Yeah, I'm on my phone, so it's a bit difficult for me to do it. In fact, if
you do Roman finds and Scarborough,
that's it. You found it there.
Yeah.
That bit there with the circle in it.
yeah, there's there's a whole heap of them. That's awesome.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I found.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's what they've just found. Is that
Cool.
so?
And how far did you say that's from your house?
About 500 meters.
Wow.
Yeah, because like I say, they're building some there's a housing development going on behind where I live, and all that was fields. And so when they were doing this housing development, they came across this, so all work had to stop until they started digging this up. And it's turned out that this is a hell of a find that they've got.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen, because I don't think they're going to be allowed to dig over it, because they're saying that this is something special, apparently.
Yes. Yep. The development will be stopped while the archaeological investigation goes on. That's what usually happens.
Yeah, but I don't think they will then, because it seems to be that important. I don't think then they're going to be able to say, okay, you can start destroying it and building houses on it. I don't know what.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, it'll have to become a historical site for sure.
You would think so. I mean, when they did it in York, obviously in York, they find that stuff all the time. But I remember when I was a kid, they were doing some development and they were knocking down buildings, and they came across something like that, but nothing as impressive as this. And that's where they got the Jorvik Viking Centre. And all the remains and that are all underneath it.
Oh, I've been to that, Jorvik. I've been to that. We went there as well.
And did you see the bit where they've got like a glass floor and you can walk over it and see all the stuff underneath?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, actual
I was
real.
about 7-year-old when they found that, and we were stood on the street looking over while they were digging it up. And then, obviously, because it was so important, they then made the Jorvik Viking Centre over the top of that, and then they put the glass floor over, and obviously all development stopped. And this is probably going to happen with this. Is that an aerial view of it? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, aerial view of it.
Can you imagine walking through that?
That was awesome, because they gave you like they provided the scientific evidence of what their food was. They, through investigating their feces and the state of their teeth and everything else that they did, and they gave you all the evidence. They gave you reconstruction. It was just brilliant. It was incredible.
Yeah,
it was like, wow.
When you went, did they have the the only way I can describe it is like like when you go on a ghost train ride. I
think there was. I'm not sure. I don't think I went on it, but I think I saw it there. I think we just walked
if,
around.
Yeah, well, if you ever go back and you get the chance to go on that is really impressive. It's probably about 20 minutes, half an hour ride, but they've got all the all like a town made up. So you go around the town, you can see where people are making stuff, and it's really is impressive. I took the grandson there probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and it's the first time I've been on it. Which the reason for that is because I suppose when you live in an area, you just take things for granted, so you don't really take a lot of notice.
Right.
I mean, I live on the coast. I haven't been down to the sea for probably for about 3 years, and I'm literally half a mile away from the sea.
Yeah.
It's because I was brought up here, so to me it was my back garden as a kid, and the same with that. It was just something I never went. I took the grandkid about 3 years ago, and it was something that I thought, well, I should have done this years ago, and I never did.
Paul, I'm looking at this, and you see the way there's different lines, different angles of structures here. It looks like perhaps there was a structure on top of a structure at one point.
Yeah, to be honest, I'd have to go on the internet myself and see what they think it is. But they did say what they thought it was, and I think them on the right there, where them like pillow things are, just to the right of that circle. I think that's something to do with the underfloor eating that they had, because they even had underfloor eating and something like that.
My first thought, because I saw another picture, they had a construction worker walking between these, and they looked like stone walls. Could that have been like a bathhouse? As I've seen Roman bathhouses that were kind of raised from the floor, and that's where they put the hot water.
It could be, like I say. They only came out with it. It's only probably about a month or 6 weeks when they actually announced what they found, and then all these pictures came out. And let's say that's 500 meters behind my house. I can literally walk to that.
Yeah, yeah. There's all kinds of digs here. Not just the uncovering, but there's all kinds of things there. I don't know what they're doing, but they're fine.
Yeah, well, I said that was supposed to be whatever the new housing development was going to be. Now I don't know what they're going to do, because I mean, it'd be criminal to destroy that and to build houses on it. It'd be absolutely criminal.
Yeah, they better not.
Well, I don't think they will. I'm hoping they don't.
Yeah. So, Paul, are you offering a place for me to stay if I come over and visit?
Yeah, I tell you what. Yes, I would.
Fantastic!
Absolutely, I would. Yeah.
Well, if I can afford the plane fare, I'll come over and see you.
No problem whatsoever.
We'll have to save up. I hope my wife had come with me. I'd love to, like Joel was saying before, I didn't do any, like when I was in London for 3 months all up. So I did a month in London, then a month in Scotland, a month in Iceland, and then back to 2 months more in London. And I just did self-guided tours. I just went around to museums and art galleries and just found this thing and that thing here and there, and went to, down, like he said, down little side streets, and not just in London, but like when we went to York and to places like that, it was like, we've got to do the tourist thing. We've got to see York Minster. But you're always trying to look for the other things that are interesting, not just the touristy type of stuff. You want to see real life, how people live in other places. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you can find it more interesting when you do that yourself, when you actually go out and find stuff yourself rather than on an organised tour. Because I suppose on an organised tour, you've got your little booklet, so you have an idea what you're going to see that day. Yeah. Whereas if you do it yourself, when you walk around the next corner, you've got no idea what you're going to see.
Yeah, it's more exciting.
It is,
and
yes.
It becomes more personal, because now it's it's a personal discovery rather than someone leading you there. And my favourite place to go was actually Bunhill Fields in London. A cemetery was my favourite spot. All the heroes of the faith. Nice. John Bunyan's tomb. John Owen, I think, was there. There was a few different ones, and I attended. I was living in Southwark, which is southwest London, I think. So a pretty rough area, but it wasn't too bad when I was there. I didn't encounter any problems, but I was going to Elephant and Castle Metropolitan Tabernacle, Spurgeon's old church, which was interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, I think London gets a bit of a bad name, to be honest. I used to live. I was in the forces, and I was posted down at a place called Odium, which is about 20 miles to the west of London. from the M3, and I used to go into London on a Friday. I used to do security for a TV program called TFI Friday.
Yeah.
So I used to do security there, and I tell you who was there. Prince had come over,
Right.
and he had his bodyguard was there. Well, his bodyguard was built like the back end of a house. It was absolutely massive. He had arms out here, and I'm stood backstage talking to him, having a cigarette with him. And he says, do you know where I can get some cigarettes from? And I went, yeah. I said, just go down this side of this building here. I says, turn right. I said, and straight opposite the front doors to the studios, I says, is a little shop. Just go in there and get some cigarettes. He went, I'm not going down there. And I says, why not? He says, I've heard what it's like in London. He says, I'll probably get knifed or something. And I looked at the sides of me, I went, believe me, mate, I says, nobody's going to mess with you. It was massive. And he wouldn't go. And in the end, I had to go. I said, look, give us your money, I'll go get some cigarettes. And I had to go down and get the cigarettes for him because he wouldn't go. And he says, and it was from the Bronx in New York. And I went, I said, where are you from? He says, I'm from the Bronx. And I went, the Bronx? And he went, ignore all the things you see on TV about the Bronx. He says, it isn't that bad. And I went, exactly. I said, ignore all the things you see on TV about London. I says, it isn't that bad.
Yeah. Well, that was my experience. I mean, I wasn't into the nightlife much, but I didn't have that much problem. I think if you're a little bit sensible, a little bit cautious, a little bit wise about what you do, there's no reason to be scared most of the time.
No.
Yeah. Occasionally things might happen, but you keep your wits about you and keep your eyes open. And just ask people locally who are in the know. Don't be wandering around like looking like a tourist.
Yeah, I suppose,
making it obvious that you're an easy mark. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I used to work it was Hammersmith, which is like say
the Hammersmith Odeon. Oh yeah.
No,
Oh
right, where the Hammersmith Odeon is. I used to work around the back of that, and it's called Riverside Studios.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the Odeon is like on this side here. And if you go, if you're looking at the Odeon from the front, if you go to the right of the Odeon and go down, I think it's 2 streets down, and then turn left, and that's the Riverside Studios, which backs onto the River Thames. So when you go out the back of the studios, you've got the River Thames there, and I can't remember what the bridge is that goes past it.
I don't even know what the Hammersmith Odeon is, but I've just heard of it.
Yeah, it's just a theatre.
Right. So
they do like one of the main things they do there is like a comedian thing that's on TV on the Odeon. But yeah, it's a famous theatre is the Odeon.
Oh, like Michael McIntyre and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's what he does it in. That's where he does it.
That's the Odeon. Okay, yep.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. And like I say, behind that is Riverside Studios, which where TFI Friday used to be filmed.
Right.
Well, Paul, I know you need to probably get going soon, but if you are able to linger for a little while.
It was 20 minutes ago. He said 5 minutes. I have to go, isn't it?
It happens.
Well, I'm at work tonight, and it's my last night. I've got Friday off. I've taken Friday night off because I'm picking up a new car on Friday. Well, when I say a new car, it's a second-hand car. But I'm picking up my new second-hand car on Friday, so I've booked Friday night off. So I've only got tonight to do, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
I was mentioning because our youngest daughter, she's in the Philippines right now, and
very nice.
Yeah, we were talking about trying to see if she wanted to join earlier tonight, and so she messaged back. Her husband just came back, so they're having lunch together at midnight my time. They're having lunch, but she might join. So you might have a chance to meet her if you'd like. Mention you can linger for a little while. I don't know if she's going to be able to come online tonight or not, but.
Right. Well, I'm gonna have to jump out anyway. I'll carry on listening and watching while I'm travelling home. It'll take me about 20 minutes from home from here.
Sure. Sounds good.
So yeah, I'll catch you on later. So it's been nice speaking to you. I'll just it's Graham, isn't it?
Yeah, good to meet you, Paul.
Yeah, nice meeting you, Graham. And yes, if you ever do want to come to UK, if you get in touch with Joe or me, all I'll say is you can come to my house, and then at some point I'll come to yours.
Yeah.
Awesome. This is what I want to see happen more often.
That's the way to get your best cheap holidays, isn't it?
That's it.
Thank
That's
you.
it. It's very expensive. Otherwise, it's the biggest
Oh, I love
cost
that one.
apart from the airfares.
Yeah.
Is
If you've only got one of the big costs to fork out, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Was I?
All right, Paul. I hope you enjoy your travels. Safe drive home. All
You
good
might
stuff.
be right.
Yep. Thanks very much. Right. I'll catch you all later. I'll carry on listening.
Love that song.
Thanks, sir.
See you, Paul.
See you later.
Woo-hoo.
I really like him. Him and I butted head once on Facebook that I don't want to talk about, but otherwise, man, I wish, yeah. Oh, gives me hope for the world that no matter, even if people want to completely disagree together religiously, you can still get along, still be human together. You know?
Yeah. Well, I found that with Andy Cap.
Yeah.
I strongly disagree with him about universalism, but hey, we can be friends.
Yeah. Very good.
If he's willing to be civil, unlike someone else that I could mention, actually many more than just one, but one in particular at the moment, all this rubbish that's going on at the moment. But anyway, let's not get into that. But that's the dividing line. Let's be civil.
Yeah, that's the main point for what my streams that I want to try to have, host is to not allow the typical fighting. We can disagree, but as soon as all that crap, the stuff that normally seems to happen in other channels happens, I want to shut that down quick. So civilized disagreement.
Oh,
But
sweet.
yeah. See,
I want to get better at that not happening on my channel. I realized, I think it was earlier today, I realized that I shouldn't have let Chris. I shouldn't have become angry at Chris. I should have cut it off.
Yeah.
It was a waste of time. There's no point getting angry.
Yeah. Well, see, the encouraging part is that you didn't want to do that. In retrospect, you know.
Yeah, well, if he doesn't want to listen, I just have to kick him out rather than getting angry with him.
So I don't know if you got a chance to watch the channel from LPP's channel. I think last night, his after show.
I haven't. No.
Okay.
I think I popped over there for a little while, but I didn't stay.
Okay. Can you link Graham's channel? Give me a second. Let me look that up. But basically, after their little after show review of another debate, we were talking about just evolution stuff. Got into the software and technology, which I really enjoyed. But people kept trying to beat up on poor Bill. He's a theistic evolutionist, I guess you say. But still would calm down after every once in a while. We would chill back out, and I really, really loved that. So I want to encourage that more often with everybody, including myself. That is Graham's channel.
I've put my channel in the private chat. Oh, okay, good, you've done it in the public chat.
I think that's your original channel, not your backup channel. Sure.
No, I think that's my backup. I think that's the current one.
Okay.
Yeah. Conservative Christian, great name. I'd love to have you on my channel. I do have two channels. I have a backup channel that I'm running at the moment, and I'll probably stick with it because the other one's on its second strike. I can't even remember what the first strike. Oh, that's right. It was a copyright infringement. I played someone else's video, didn't realize that I was going to get a strike for it. And then I got a second strike for talking about the current world event that is not allowed to be questioned, if I can say it in that discreet way. I'm not allowed to challenge, but I don't even remember challenging them in the way that they accused me of challenging them. And so I appealed it and said, can you show me where? They didn't. They said, we've upheld the strike, and that was it. Typical fascism from our overlords.
Yes.
From the lizard people that run our world.
Public health danger, Graham. Talking about things without your mask on.
Yep, I'm a threat to world democracy. I'm so powerful.
Yeah, our daughter Shay and I, we were talking a little bit about that earlier tonight. She was because they're struggling right now in the Philippines. I mean, her husband's kind of off and on finding work because they have a very, very strict lockdown over there. It's more so it seems than most other places. And she was sharing how even their grocery stores, they have the regular restrictions and stuff that we have, but they wouldn't even allow her to enter the building at all because she was pregnant. She had to literally just stand outside in the heat waiting.
So on my channel yesterday, Pigs Matt got an Indian friend of his to get on, a pastor in India, and I got my Indian pastor friend to get on, and both of them were telling us how terrible it is over in India. The government is lying to everyone and saying, "Oh, we're fine," but people are just dying in the streets. There's no help for people. And not only that, but with the lockdown, people can't work and earn money. People are starving to death over there. These are Christians, these people know, but not just Christians, other people who aren't Christians who, are in the lockdown, and they either die from COVID or they die from starvation.
That's crazy.
It's ridiculous. But I've seen more of that on the news here than I get the sense that America isn't seeing that on the news, like it's not being shown on the news over there. And the reason that we're seeing it on the news is because there's Indians who've become Australian citizens and have gone home to India or gone back to India for a funeral or a wedding or something like that. And now they can't come back to Australia because we're protecting ourselves by locking our borders rather than quarantining these people or dealing with it in a more humane way. No, you have to stay in India. You're not allowed to come home to Australia, even though they're Australian citizens now. It's like
it's kind of what they're facing in the Philippines. They're wanting to come back.
Disgustingly wicked world we live in.
Yeah.
Well, it's finally starting to come out. Dr. Fauci's connections to the Wuhan lab finally starting to come out after all this time.
Yeah, we better not mention his name. I don't want Joel to get a strike.
Yeah. I did see I forget his name now. There's a guy on YouTube that makes a perfect imitation of Dr. Fauci.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he has a beard though, but otherwise, it's amazing. It's really cute. But anyway,
yeah, that'd be funny.
Yeah.
If I don't start crying or getting angry.
Yeah, like I said, this is a conversation for the brokenhearted. So we lift each other up.
Well, yeah, that's right. That's the world we live in. It's easy to get depressed at the moment and want to run off to Mars.
Mars, yeah. Another 5 years, yeah. 2026. That's the first human flight plan.
I might be too old by then.
Yeah, I don't know. Elon's wanting to go. He's, he's 47, 48.
Yeah, but he's taking all these skills. What am I? Cannon fodder.
Oh, you can turn a wrench, right?
That's right. I can turn a wrench. Why doesn't he just take some monkeys with him?
Well, so you need to do a little bit more than just a wrench turn, but yeah. No, the idea is to build a minimum million-man colony there. So more the better.
Yeah.
Backup plan for humanity.
So is he planning to seed the planet with what, algae or bacteria or something like? Are they hoping to create an atmosphere, oxygenated atmosphere?
Oh yeah, all of
and what's the plan? Like, I guess it's called terraforming, isn't it?
Correct.
What's the plan for? Like, how do you oxygenate an atmosphere where there's? I assume Mars has no atmosphere.
It has a very thin atmosphere, but it does have one.
Right.
It's 96% carbon dioxide. And the first idea. So there's the new Perseverance Martian probe that NASA just landed earlier this year has an experiment package on. It's called MOXIE, MOXIE, and it's basically another saboteur chemistry type effect experiment that it has successfully proven now. I mean, we already knew it would, but it's proven now, many millions of dollars later, that we can successfully convert the carbon dioxide into oxygen, the CO2 into O2. And so they're doing it right now on a small scale on Mars. And so that's the first step, is to try to build large-scale MOXIE synthesizers to create the oxygen, which will be for, of course, to breathe with and for fuel. And the next step is to densify the atmosphere, because again, it's very thin, and so there's all kinds of conversations about either trying to just warm up the planet, multiple different ways. One of the ways is to try to melt the ice caps. You got two very thick ice caps right now, and that can help densify the atmosphere and do a runaway greenhouse effect, as they said. The other somewhat controversial way is to try to deliver other gases from other planets to Mars, to siphon gas streams. And so one of the crazy, or at least the cheaper ideas, is to siphon carbon dioxide off of Venus, because it also has a very, very thick carbon dioxide atmosphere, of course.
Yeah.
So it kind of and I don't know, I'm reluctant to, talk about it too much because, it's political nonsense. But so Musk, he just recently modified his X Prize, he calls it, the contest he does to incentivize private projects, to try to encourage new technologies into carbon dioxide capture technology to basically, capture CO2 in the atmosphere. And of course, the global warming, political correct crowd are all excited about it, try to help capture and do other things with the CO2 here on Earth,
Yeah.
But the real added benefit, the real hope is to create better ideas for capturing the carbon on Venus and then transferring that to Mars to densify the atmosphere, like I'm talking about, and then of course convert the carbon into oxygen. So
Wow.
lots of ideas. Yeah,
It just blows my mind to even think about it. It's just incredible.
It's exciting. So it's the funnest thing I could think of in science these days. But.
So I'm more of a biologist than any other science, or except philosophy.
Yeah.
But so what about plants to do it?
So yeah, you have to create a survivable environment for plants as well.
Right.
So it's too thin of an atmosphere, and
so that's the problem, is plants wouldn't survive. That's why you're looking for a technological solution.
Right, not without a greenhouse.
Yeah,
plants, they need pressure, and they need photosynthesis. Yeah, so you have to try to get the atmosphere a little more dense, and there's all kinds of all the math is done, the measurements, all the science is done.
What about these extreme? I can't remember what they call them, but are they bacteria or something that can live in extremely very extreme environments? Mm-hmm. Is there any research going into that?
Absolutely, yeah. Not just bacteria. So. One of the more public ones, there's a lab in the Netherlands, I believe, or Finland, somewhere over there, that has been successfully taking what they call the Martian regolith, the simulated, basically they take other dirt and they try to do things to it and remove the nitrogen and whatnot to make it seem like more Martian type soil. And they've got actual live earthworms that are processing that soil now into something more usable for biology. So we've already created, synthetic or simulated type conversion processes for the soil going on right now on Earth. So, yeah, all kinds of cool stuff. And of course, like all the movies, if you can create enough resilient plant life in a greenhouse, and as you slowly convert the atmosphere, you just open the greenhouse doors, There you go. So yeah, life is pretty powerful. You look like you're thinking.
Sorry?
You look like you're thinking.
Yeah. I was typing something on Facebook.
No problem. Yeah. No. Again, it's all more or less figured out. Of course, you don't know for sure till you pull the trigger to get there.
Yeah. Well, it's a massive experiment. I like your analogy comparing it to the Pilgrims, because they didn't know. They were just trusting God.
That's it. Yes, sir. Yeah, but I mean, there's all kinds of science packages over there, amazing.
I hope he takes some true Christians with him, because that'll help.
I'll tell you, man. I say often, and people get mad at me for saying it, there are no atheists in science. I've been doing this stuff for almost 30 years, and I can count the number of atheists that I've worked with on one hand. And they're almost
not being an atheist doesn't mean you're actually a Christian.
Well, I can, I know what you're saying. I was going to say also, so even back at SpaceX, I think there may have been one non-Christian there. I mean, I should say it differently. There's one guy who didn't like talking about religion. Everybody else, we had the Hindus, I had a Mormon friend there, we had Calvinists, and whether or not people want to debate if they're Christian or not, everybody's theists.
Yeah, I don't debate whether Calvinists are Christian. I might debate whether an individual Calvinist, but just being a Calvinist doesn't mean you're not a Christian. If you trusted the gospel, and that the Calvinists by and large understand the gospel. I know Bob goes a little bit further than I do on this point, but I don't I don't agree with Calvinists, but it's not that they reject the gospel by and large. Calvinism itself doesn't reject the gospel, as far as I've seen. I think it just twists it a little bit, so that some Calvinists reject the gospel, some go too far with that twisting.
Yeah, you do that with every doctrine, I guess.
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah, I love that guy, man, because he was my first real life Calvinist, I guess. I never met one until him or the internet. And so I'd tell people often, we would find things to do. He was one of the engineers on what's called the large site stand in McGregor. We'd find things to do nearby him just so we could have fun debating it, And he was real chill. He was one of the cool Calvinists. So
that's the ones I like.
Yep, so he was fun.
The ones who it makes sense to them, but they don't condemn other people or call them Arminians for disagreeing with them.
There you go. My point was that everybody, like 90+%, not 99%, we're some sort of form of a Christian believer, So.
Yeah. I just got to walk away for a sec.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know why, but my hair has a green or yellow tinge to it on this.
Is it on your camera, or is it? I mean, you try to look.
Well, it looks like on the video there's a slight green or yellow tinge to the grey, the white grey, the light grey or white.
Yeah, I was going to recommend if you can get like a second camera, like from your phone, to look at. If it's different, then there's all kinds of hue and all kinds of color balancing settings probably you can play with.
I think it's because it's a little bit dark in this room that I'm in. The light, like the brightness, isn't quite good enough. If I opened the blind, I'd get better sun, but then it's too hot.
Well, maybe all this Mars talk is bringing out your hidden Martian in you, turning green hair.
Turning green. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'd love to get more into those details, but yeah.
Well, one of the things that if I went to Mars, one of the things that I would love to do is be sort of communicate. I mean, I don't know, how long does information take to travel from Mars to Earth?
On normal radio transmissions, about 12 minutes, but there is some amazing work going on right now in what's it called? In entanglement telecommunication, where it's going to be instantaneous.
Really? Wow.
Mm-hmm. There's some experiments on the ISS right now that are seemingly proving success, but it's not easy to do. So we want to make it easy. But yeah.
See, that makes me wonder, is the I don't know. It's hard for me to think about, but it makes me think about an isotropic synchrony convention, that we don't know what the one-way speed of light is. We can only measure the two-way speed of light. Because to measure the one-way speed of light, you need to know the one-way speed of light. Because I've
seen those. I know what you're talking about. There's plenty of YouTube videos on that. Yeah. It's largely irrelevant.
If communication can be instantaneous, like, I mean, it might be a little bit beyond me, but how can it be instantaneous if the speed of light is, what it is?
The entanglement principle for quantum physics is that if you can entangle enough quanta or enough subatomic particles, what happens to one thing instantaneously happens to another thing despite distance. It's what Einstein called the spooky science.
I've actually had someone explain it to me this way. Is this the same thing? So if you had a tube full of, say, billiard balls, if you pushed a billiard ball at one end, instantly the billiard ball at the other end would pop out.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So the billiard ball at this end doesn't have to travel. It just pushes on all the rest of them.
Right. Those are entangled particles.
So that's what entanglement means. So what is it? Photons you're entangling or electrons?
I was going to say it's not billiards necessarily, but yeah, it's different types of subatomic particles, and that's the hard part.
Okay.
Yeah. Because just the detectors alone are pretty finicky. But then once you've established an entangled particle, just maintaining it is another kind of nightmare. So there's a lot of work left to be done to make it quote unquote reliable.
Yeah.
The Chinese say that they've done it, even though they don't show how. And then again, there are actual real life experiments for it. But.
It's difficult for me to trust the Chinese.
I don't know why.
I should add Chinese government after I say Chinese. It's not them as a race. It's the leadership of the nation that is untrustworthy.
They're only gutting their dissident slaves alive for their health.
Yeah, that's right.
It's evolution.
Killing people for organ harvesting and
yeah. No, the point was that it's theoretically possible, and we're just doing the practical side of it now, making it work.
As always, theory pretty much has to precede practical.
Well, not all the time. Sometimes, in fact, some of the best stuff is found out by accident. So.
That's yes, it has happened that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I was sharing with those guys last night about how in a lot of stuff that we do in science, he was talking about how evolution has to be substantiated because of certain things in the geological record that he was talking about. And he had these 3 good examples, and I'm thinking, I was trying to tell him that there is plenty of things that we see in science that cannot make sense. It defies all laws of nature, the physical laws. I quoted Planck on that kind of stuff. There are things that we'll see that does not make sense, and the last thing we do is just dismiss it and say, well, these other alternatives have to be true. We'll study. We crave to understand what doesn't make sense. Outside of theory, outside of just rationality, is everything. We want to find that next breakthrough type thing, whatever you call it, revolutionary thing. Yeah. So a lot of theory is good to start with things, but it's not usually that helpful. I should say.
Well, the problem is that it starts with a hypothesis, and then you have to test it. So, you hold on to the hypothesis until you prove it wrong. And I mean, it's not. There's people that claim that the word theory is reserved only for those things that have been tested to the nth degree by science and are expected to never be proven wrong, because they explain everything and they've been thoroughly tested. But that's not true, because they apply it to evolution.
Like how Einstein put that, he said that no experiment can ever prove me right. A single experiment can prove me wrong.
Yeah, that's and so you can be right this time, but that doesn't mean you're right.
Right. Well, that's also something else I try to explain, is that even if we do think we figured something out, the scientific consensus or whatnot, that doesn't mean that there's a consensus. You always test things no matter what.
Well, scientific consensus is meaningless. It was the consensus. Geocentrism was the consensus. So what? What matters is what can be proven to be true. It doesn't matter what people believe. What people believe doesn't tell you what's true. And even if everybody believes it, that doesn't mean it's true. And the same is true in science. It's no different in science than in any other field. Like these people, atheists love to say, oh, you just trust religion. We're scientists. No, you're not. You're naturalists. You have your own religion. We're both trying to use science. We're the ones that are being honest about our belief system. You're the ones that are lying about your belief system and trying to conflate it with what you call science, and changing the definition of science to be naturalism. It's like,
I'm with you. No, you're right.
It's actually a philosophical position that they have, not a scientific position, and it's an unfalsifiable philosophical position because it's circular reasoning. What scares me the most is that they can't see it. But of course, God's word warns us that they won't be able to see it. They've already rejected the truth. That's why they walk in darkness. That's why they can't see it. But it still annoys me.
True, Jesse. She's going to link a video. Yeah, no, I'll go even further into all those topics, all those points you just made. So I love how Planck put it.
Without a wrench, she can't share a link. I don't think.
Forgot all
You have
about
to
that.
have a wrench. You have to be a moderator to share a link, as far as I understand it.
Yep, thanks for reminding me. Max Planck, the founder of quantum physics, he said that we have no right to assume that any physical law exists, or that if any law exists today, that it will continue to exist the same way in the future.
Well, that would be even more true if evolution. If there is no God, that's absolutely true. There is no such thing as a law.
There you go.
Whereas if there is a God, then see, this is the problem. I mean, I understand partly where Max Planck's coming from, because he's dealing with quantum mechanics and stuff like that, where we don't fully understand it at the moment. I don't fully agree with him, though, in an absolute sense, because if there are no laws, then science can't work. All right, so we have to have the logical laws, at least the law of non-contradiction, the law of being able to repeat an experiment. If the laws are constantly changing, then you can't repeat an experiment.
I could partially agree with that. I would say it differently a little bit, in that so science is the scientific method is a method. You know what Bacon started. I like to call it the Christian scientific method, because Christians started it. It can work without established quote unquote laws or rules. It's a set of processes, and so the individual steps can be used to try to establish what seems to be a law. But as Planck, I think, correctly points out, even if you do that, even if you can say you've got a law of thermodynamics, you have a law of gravity, you have universal law of motion, that kind of thing. Even if you do, you still have to always check it with that scientific method. You never assume something is always true, like you're saying.
Yes. Yeah.
So science can't prove what's right. It can just help us understand what looks like is reliable based on repeatable observation and experiment, until those experiments show otherwise.
Yeah, because the laws of motion of Newton, and what Newton assumed how the world worked, based on how objects beyond atoms, beyond the size of an atom, how they operated, breaks down below that size. And so you go, well, hang on, it's a bit more complicated than Newton realized in his day with what he was able. I mean, he didn't have the technology. People have gone further because of platforms that he and many others have laid. And we've gone, well, hang on, those laws of motion, we now have to put a limit on them. You don't mind giving me a mod wrench, do you?
I did.
Joel?
Yep, I already did. But Newton's laws still apply. They still exist. They still are testable. So the way I started to talk about this with that guy Bill last night, that we try to apply all three versions of physics, Newtonian physics and relativity physics and quantum physics. They all have different aspects, and as you accurately described, different levels, so to say. So we try to, and Einstein tried to do that. Einstein was reluctant to understand or to agree with Planck and Heisenberg that God does indeed play dice with the universe, as their arguments went. And so Einstein started his universal theory of everything, which is supposed to try to merge or to reconcile all the three different forms of physics. And we get close. We're still trying to work on it today. And it very well likely will happen. But yeah. So, and I parallel it like with rocket science, so there's things that we do with all three forms of physics to make sure we hang our rockets properly. We have to make time dilation equations to be able to check how the telemetry is going to be able to match just right, because the faster they go and the further the higher up they go, the more time is delayed. So we have to calculate you can't just point your dish at the rocket. You have to kind of aim a little off to the side sometimes to make sure you talk to it properly, especially when it leaves orbit. But all kinds of cool stuff about that. We have to combine and mix ideas until we come up with a better one.
Yeah. Constantly. Emmanuel Velikovsky. Yes, I've heard a little bit about him.
I have not. I've tried to study much about Mr. Einstein. I have not heard this guy yet.
The story in Solos. I'm sure I've heard of Velikovsky.
Sounds like a worthy.
It does look slightly misspelt, but I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember how I know the name. It does ring a bell.
Another worthy research project.
I don't think the C is in it. Get rid of the C, and that's the correct spelling, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
Russian, Israeli, and American scholar. Worlds in Collision, 1950.
Revisionist.
Born in Vitebsk, Russian Empire, now Belarus. Died in Princeton, New Jersey. Oh, there's a V in it. Velikovsky.
All right.
The Earth suffered a close contact with planets like Venus and Mars in ancient history. I guess, yeah. Tis possible.
There's a link. Emmanuel Velikovsky. Oh,
Yeah.
you've already got it, Joel.
Yeah. What is he trying to revise, do you think? Trying to look to his wiki article.
Egyptian revisionist, probably the dates.
Okay.
I would expect. So there's massive problems with the Egyptian. Like if you take the standard Egyptian chronology, it just doesn't work. It contradicts itself. But people still rely upon it and put it above the Bible and go, oh, we can't find the Exodus because they're looking in the wrong place based on the Egyptian chronology instead of adjusting the Egyptian chronology to fit the Bible because the Bible is accurate.
Right.
And that sort of ties in with work like that. I can't remember his name. Marnie did a film, Patterns of Evidence, Exodus, which is just brilliant, absolutely awesome. There's a massive amount of evidence for the Exodus if you look in the right place.
Well, it looks like he was primarily a psychiatrist.
He was probably a polymath,
Yeah.
as many of these brilliant people are.
I've been accused of that.
Accused of it?
Yeah.
You make it sound like a bad thing.
It can be. Oh my gosh.
Oh, it can be confusing, but
No.
I'd rather be smart than dumb.
I think everybody's equally smart. Just people have different interests, and that's the problem. It's not that it's confusing. It's just that I get stuck with needing to know things.
Yeah.
To a point.
Well, people's brains work differently. Some people, like the saying goes, ignorance is bliss. And it's not because ignorance is good. It's because people are blissful in their ignorance. They're so unaware of reality that they live in a blissful ignorance, even of their own lack of, ability to perceive reality and desire even to grow. It's sad. Ignorance is bliss is a condemnation, not approval.
Yep.
But I remember hearing someone else say, so you've heard of the saying, those who do not know history are condemned to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone else has added this to it. And those who do know history are condemned to be constantly persecuted by the knowledge of how ignorant everybody else is and how they're destroying our world. That's not exactly how they wrote it. They wrote it in a much more pithy way, but essentially that was the gist.
I've got a shorter version I can share.
Yeah. You've probably got the accurate one. I gave that's it. That's exactly the one. Those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it, yet those who do study history are doomed to stand by helplessly while everyone else repeats it. Yep. Is this the no-nonsense place? Well, depends who's defining nonsense, Jesse.
Welcome to the chat, Jesse. I haven't heard from you in, it seems like a few months. Have you guys know each other yet?
I have not met Graham.
No.
I'm not so sure if I've seen you on other channels, so
yeah.
I think I might have seen the conservative Christian thing before. I haven't seen Shadow Dancer.
So I changed my YouTube name, and Yeah, so it might be possible I've met you. I met the other guy before, so
I wouldn't say I've met you. I've just seen the name in chat or something. I think I have. I'm not 100% sure, but it rings a vague bell.
Jesse, I'm going to relink Graham's channel if you'd like to find
no,
him.
I already saved it. I
Okay.
definitely like to see the stuff on it, but that's just interesting that you looked up Emmanuel Velikovsky because he is a very radical revisionist, like very radical. Like, have you heard of Dr. David Rowe?
I have not.
Was he in Patterns of Evidence?
Yes, he
Exodus?
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's
I
actually
remember
more
him
of
from
a
there.
very conservative revisionist. He only thinks that Egyptian history needs to move forward about like maybe 200 years. Manny Velikovsky claims that Egyptian history needs to move forward like 500 to 700 years. Yeah, so and actually David Roll actually comes from his revision. He's one of the followers like Alan Montgomery. Have you heard of him?
No, I don't think so.
John Bimson, Eric
Right.
Atchison. None of those names sound familiar.
Most of my knowledge of it comes from either having watched Patterns of Evidence, Exodus, or from comments made, and I don't get into it as much as it sounds like you do. I just follow it, sort of. I'm trying to educate myself, but I haven't got into it enough to remember everything. But what's on creation.com, Creation Ministries, and articles that are written there trying to sort out the apparent contradiction between Egyptian chronology and the Bible.
So there's a gentleman named Roger Waite, Waite. You can just Google him, go on YouTube, and he does an amazing comprehensive video on all of that stuff. He actually shows Eric Atchison, another guy named James something, Dr. David Roll, and Emmanuel Velikovsky, and he read all their books, and he actually breaks them down, all their arguments about Egypt's revision. Because, it's actually really good, and that's where I got a lot of my leg room with trying to understand about, okay, so if you lay the Bible's chronology out, it does not match with Egypt's chronology. It's very far off.
Yep.
And even if you go with Dr. David Rolls, he does a really good job.
Because there was even secular research. Now I can't remember what camp David Roll fell in, but there's even secular researchers who say, well, we don't trust the Egyptian chronology. We try to line the Egyptian chronology up with the biblical chronology, and if you do try to do that, you can do it instead of ignoring the biblical chronology or assuming it's wrong and trying to, and that doesn't work. Doing it that way around. But that's the other thing as well, is that if you honestly search biblical, what the Bible says as an archaeologist or as a historian or as a whatever, there is no one that's ever been able to successfully, with integrity, prove that the Bible is wrong.
You're absolutely
people
right.
Question it. And people can say, well, the evidence is not there. Right, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. And the more you research, the more you will prove that the Bible is right.
Absolutely, because the thing is that one of the big things that I loved about, I forget the name of the guy that did the video, the Moses controversy and Patterns of Evidence, the Exodus. Basically, the premise is that they're looking for the Exodus in the wrong time. That's why they don't find evidence for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tim Marnie.
Yeah, Timani. Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole reason. Like when I was in a class, they told me that, the Exodus didn't happen because of all this kind of stuff. And all of it is absolutely wrong because they're looking for it in the wrong place.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I loved about Patterns of Evidence. It was like, well, there's all the evidence. And I knew they would find it one day because I trust God's word. and to talk to the scholars, including the scholars who say there's no evidence, and then talk to the scholars who say, well, they're looking in the wrong place. Here's the evidence over here. And then you go, wow, look at that. They're just absolute mountains of evidence. It's like, how can you dispute that? How can you ignore that? But yeah.
You really should look up Roger Waite. It's absolutely amazing because like some
I've
people,
opened his channel.
Yeah, so some people think that Tutmosis III is the pharaoh of the Exodus.
Yeah.
And he's not. There's actually a treasure wall. It's actually called the treasure wall at Karnak. Because Tutmosis III completed the Temple of Karnak. Now, the Temple of Karnak is actually a complex. It's not a temple. It's a big complex. And there's this massive treasure wall with numbered indicators of all the treasure that he got. Well, where did he get it from?
Yeah.
Well, he fought at a battle called the Battle of Megiddo. And this is actually Solomon's temple. He actually got the loot from Solomon's temple. And there are gold shields mentioned on there, which is in 1 Kings. It's absolutely amazing. And of course, secular historians, they want to try to ignore this because they're like, well, Solomon wasn't that wealthy. He wasn't that renowned. Well, that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says that he was that renowned, he was that wealthy, and he was that wise. But they have to ignore it because, exactly.
Because otherwise they have to accept God. They reject it because they don't want to accept God.
Exactly.
They have no other reason.
Yeah, so they try to do their mental gymnastics to try to get around it. And it actually kind of cracks me up when I read some of these, what historians say. And I'm like, oh, you're bouncing around the topic. You're bouncing around it because you don't want to admit it.
Yeah. That sounds familiar.
Right?
Yep.
If you guys don't mind, I actually stumbled on that video I was mentioning earlier tonight about the guy that does an impersonation of Dr. Fauci.
Oh yes, go for it.
Quick laugh. Hey, Paul's back. Hey, hold on, let me share screen with audio. It's only like 50 seconds, so
yeah. G'day, Paul again.
Don't derail y'all. Here we go. This guy's funny.
Say, even if you live alone, I would wear a mask in the house, especially in the shower, because frankly, droplets can make the way through the drain and come up through somebody else's toilet, infecting them with COVID through the anus.
I forgot that part.
2 to 20 years, you can start thinking about considering the idea of pondering the thought of conceptualizing possibility of maybe perhaps reopening, but probably not. I would avoid having any fun whatsoever in the near to far future.
Glad you guys are laughing.
Oh, that was great.
Scary. Well, you have to laugh. If you don't laugh, you cry or you get angry. I just want to punch
Agreed.
something sometimes.
Can't make fun of life. What can you do?
Right.
Yeah. Scary.
Paul, if you'd like to rejoin, buddy, you are more than welcome.
Stupid world we live in.
It is. It's so backwards. Like, it actually kind of reminds me of what Jesus said, when he said, the end times will be like the days of Noah.
Yeah.
Like, I think we kind of forget that they were so morally degenerate and so morally backwards that God had to kill the entire world. I think people kind of forget that. Like, they keep looking for wars and all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, we need to look for the morally degenerate. Today, good is not good anymore. It's evil. Or I'm sorry. I said that wrong.
Good is evil and evil is good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, so that's what I'm really encouraged about. So, there are a few social media channels, and that's what I'm trying to encourage here. So this is a good example. We got Paul, he's an atheist. We're Christians. There's other people that do have a fundamental difference in philosophy and worldview that can still get along. And so whatever crap and whatever hell's going on out there on the planet, at least we still have small little pockets like this to try to encourage each other. Have fun.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm actually happy about it because I know Jesus is going to come back.
Yeah.
I I see Graham smiling there.
Yeah. The worse it gets, the more it's like, yeah, take me home. Come on.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Like, I know Jesus is returning. Like, I'm excited. I pray for it because the Bible says to, pray for his return. I pray for it.
And I don't know why I did an American accent for that.
Hey, you gotta have fun. You gotta have fun.
That's right.
You gotta be bright and yeah.
I guess when I get excited, I turn American for some reason.
Now, where are you from? Are you from Australia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It's man, I heard about your country. I've heard it's pretty bad.
Well, yeah, there's good and bad. I try not to look at the bad too much. There's lots of bad everywhere. Everywhere's getting worse.
True. But you know what? There's always good that comes out of every bad, no matter what. Because God is good.
I was just thinking about this recently. So over a year ago, we had the lockdown and, churches were shut down and stay home and, COVID's going to decimate the whole planet and, 90% of people are going to die and all. Well, I'm exaggerating slightly, but that was the feeling that people had. And so we started Zooming as a church. We are still Zooming. Not that we aren't meeting as a church. We are now meeting as a church and Zooming for those people that can't attend to service, which we hadn't been doing before. And the technology has improved and keeps improving. Like, it's pushed this technology to make it available for, for us to be able to do more than we were doing previously. And it's pushed our churches, well, some of the churches, they don't care. They're quite happy to shut down because they're not actually churches of Jesus Christ. They don't care about the gospel. They don't care about obeying God's commands.
Amen.
And then on the other hand, you see things like what's happening in Canada, and the ones who are trying to obey God are going to jail.
I was going to ask about that. If you saw what happened to that pastor.
What happened?
Which one? There's 3 so far.
Oh my gosh! I just so there's a guy from Poland who was doing a church.
That's the second one.
Yeah, he got pulled over and arrested on the freeway.
Yeah.
What? How did they even know he was a pastor on the freeway?
Well, so he's the one that I thought was pretty famous that kicked the Canadian police officials out of his church, calling them Nazis and Gestapo. Huh?
Artur Pawlowski.
There you go.
Oh, I haven't heard about him.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
They tried to come into his church. It was Passover, he was saying in the video, if you watch it. And so during Passover, and he says, "How dare you come to my church on Passover? I'm here all day, every day. You could come and see me anytime. You could have rung me." And they won't shut up. They keep trying to blah, blah, blah. And he just keeps talking over the top of them because he says, "No, you're not allowed to come in. Get out, get out, get out, get out, get out." And because they won't get out, he starts saying to them, "You fascists, you Nazis." And he's in a Polish accent. Like, he's got this Polish accent and you're going, yeah, this guy knows. Like, this, he knows what it's like to be he grew up under communism, and he just keeps berating them until they eventually give up and turn around and walk out. And as they're walking to their car, here we go. I'll let Joel show it. It's I think this is the second one, though, isn't it?
I've actually seen that one. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is him. It's happened twice.
Yep.
They came in and then they came back with no, this is not the second one. The second one, they're outside, I think. They come back with a warrant because he says to them, "You haven't got a warrant. Get out, get out, get out, get out, get out." But they walk out the door and they're walking down the path towards their car on the street, and he's still screaming at them, "You Nazis, don't you come." And it's like, yeah, go for it, mate. Come on, tell them.
Do it.
Yeah.
And then they come back with a warrant, and he looks at the warrant and says, "You've got the wrong address on here. Go away." This is the second one. Yep. Is it? Oh, is this?
I thought it was all just one video.
Oh, this might be the first one. This is still the first one, I think.
Do not come back, you Nazi psychopath.
Psychopath. You Nazi
He's even got some stormtrooper boots on.
Yeah.
Oh.
Intimidating people in the church during the Passover.
Yeah, that's the first one. So then they come back with the warrant, but they got the wrong address on it. So he sends them away again. So this is now the third time they've come after him, but they don't come after him at the church. They follow him and arrest him on the freeway, and they manhandle him and hold him down and haul him off to jail. So that's the second Canadian pastor. The first one was James Coates, Grace Life Church. He's a student of John MacArthur's Bible College. I've forgotten the name of it, but yeah. So there's him. There's Arta Pavlovsky, and then now there's another one who I haven't heard. Like, I don't know more than that. I just know that there's a third one now. Here it is. This is the arrest.
Yep.
I haven't seen this. I've only seen the first two videos.
Hogtied and dragged off on a freeway.
Disgusting.
But Grace Life Church, because James Coates wouldn't shut down, they take him off to jail, and then they release him, but they don't dismiss all of the charges. They dismiss all of them except one. And then what they do is the police come back and they put 3 layers of barricades around his church so they can't get into the church. So they shut the church down by putting 3 layers of barricades. The church is still meeting, but somewhere else, somewhere secret. But yeah, this is not going to end. Fascism is on the rise, and it's coming against the church.
Oh, absolutely. Oh.
So, we're going to need to ask the Chinese to come give us Bibles in secret?
Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
Yay.
You know, the Chinese are already do it. The Chinese are sending more missionaries than any other country, but they're doing it in secret. It's called the Back to Jerusalem movement, if you want to look that up. Back to Jerusalem. They're on Facebook. They have a webpage and stuff. But it's hard to get accurate numbers. They have to do, obviously, a lot of secrecy, a lot of security around it. But it seems to me, as far as I can tell, that China is sending more missionaries than any other country on the face of the earth at the moment. And the estimate is that about 10% of China is now Christian. And when we say that 10% of China is Christian, we're talking about real Christians, because there are no fake Christians in China. Right. You have to be a real Christian to be a Christian in China.
Oh, absolutely. Otherwise you'll be killed or whatever. I just remember a long time ago. Did you ever hear of a group called DC Talk?
Yeah.
So they actually helped co-authored a book called Jesus Freaks.
Jesus Freak. Yep.
Yeah.
I haven't read the book, but I love the song.
Yeah. So the book was actually dedicated to all the martyrs, from the very first martyr of the apostles all the way up until, I think the book was written in 1998 or something like that, or 1999. And it's amazing. And guess what? About maybe 20%, maybe 30% of the stories were all from China during their 50-year communist reign. It's absolutely amazing. Stories are so powerful, so powerful.
Here's a nice reminder from a famous martyr.
Yep.
You history buffs probably can talk a lot about this guy too, I bet.
Hero.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hero.
Absolutely.
Even in Nazi Germany, they rose up and were killed.
Oh, you know what? I wrote a post on my Facebook, Joel, that I actually laid out everything that Nazi Germany did, and told people, I was like, listen, if you claimed Biden, Obama, or even Trump was Hitler, you're wrong. You don't even know history. You don't even know that Hitler wasn't even elected. He was appointed. He was appointed chancellor in 1933. And I wrote an entire thing about like the Nuremberg laws. Like, a lot of people don't know about the Nuremberg law. Like that thing was scary as hell. And that was actually the time that a lot of scientists actually left Nazi Germany because of that. Because the Nuremberg law was not scientific. It was pseudoscience. Absolutely.
So do you follow Dinesh D'Souza at all?
Yes, I like him. I love
what he points out about that. It was based on the Democrats' laws about blacks. And they thought that the treatment of the Democrats, or the Southern Democrats, was worse. That was too bad. We're not going to do that to the Jews. I mean, they killed them, but they didn't consider. So the Democrats went, one drop of blood, you're black. Whereas the Nazis said, oh, well, if you have one grandparent or two grandparents that's Jewish, we'll consider you Jewish.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the reason. Actually, you know what I compared the Nuremberg Law to was the Equality Act.
Hmm.
Yeah, if you ever look at the Equality Act that they're trying to pass in America, it's eerily similar to the Nuremberg Law.
Yep.
And you know what else I compared to it is the repercussions of the Nuremberg Law is that a lot of people don't know that the Nazis actually tested twins. They tested twins because they were trying to push their Third Reich narrative, meaning the 1,000-year Reich, and they needed babies. They needed lots of babies, so they were trying to test on twins. But the repercussion was that they actually tested Olympic people as well, and they tested them in these harsh, terrible environments. And it's the same thing today, like with transgenderism and stuff like that. Like, I'm sorry, that's mutilation. It is exactly what they did to those Olympic people, and it was all pseudoscience. There was nothing based in science whatsoever. Like, it's amazing. Like, if you look up at the propaganda during the time of the Nazis, it looks like what we're seeing today. It's actually kind of crazy and kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the left are replicating the fascists of and Nazism, and they were the fascists back in the 1930s as well.
Well, and I would say that communism, fascism, and socialism are all the same thing. They're cut from the same cloth.
Essentially, there's very minute differences, but
thank you. Yeah, very
you only
minute
have to,
differences.
The Communist Party today is a fascist party. They're not communists.
Mm-hmm. I would totally agree.
I apologize, Graham. I'm not going to be able to share that DC Talk video for very long. I got a strike once playing that for Gavin.
What? Really?
Yeah. You play any music video, they use it against you.
Is it because
I was just going to...
Joel, is it because you played it for more a few minutes? Because if you play it for more than a few minutes, it'll flag you.
I was just going to get you to play a few seconds. It's such an awesome...
Does this sound familiar to anybody?
What would they say when they know that we're a Jesus freak?
Yeah, what would they say when my best friend was born in a manger?
Yeah.
Love that
People
song.
say
And
I'm
they
strange. And
they flagged that, Joel?
I can't
read
that.
Because again, I think we played too much of it, but
well.
Can you guys read this okay?
No, I can't read that.
I can't read it either, but that's because I'm on my phone. Sorry.
Does that work?
Yes.
Sound familiar?
That's better. Soon after the conclusion of the war, the next step towards redistribution of family burdens will be the eradication of school fees, tuitions, and costs of education materials for all children in all types of schools, including trade schools and universities. National Socialist. See, this is the thing. They say, oh, no, they weren't socialists. Yes, they were in numerous different ways. They were very, very, very socialist.
Oh, do you know what they taught me in my school, my secular school? That Hitler was a conservative. I was like, what? I was like, what? Are you kidding? Like, he was a socialist. It says National Socialist Party. Like, and they're trying...
Oh, yeah, but they say just because it has the name doesn't mean... But look at their policies. Their policies were socialist. They had universal health care. How did they fund it? By killing the people that would cost too much.
Exactly. It was the same thing that would happen with Lenin in 1917. The greatest time that they ever had in their history, where they had the most amount of food, and yet millions of people starved. How does that happen? That's because they didn't care about the peasants. They were more concerned about increasing their infrastructure to be able to get the army to the West. Like, that's socialism. That is absolutely socialism.
I don't know if you guys can see this text or not. This is part of my debate mat material. So I'll quote out of Mein Kampf in my evolution debates, and a lot of evolutionists will agree with this. They'll say, "Yeah, that sounds right," and before they realize who wrote it,
then they get that. Yeah, and then what do they say, Joel?
I don't know if I could repeat it. But.
Actually, that's where I've heard of Velikovsky, the Velikovsky hypothesis, I think.
Probably because Velikovsky is one of the more extreme ones because of how much he I wouldn't necessarily say squishes like Egyptian history, but here's something for you guys to look up. Look up if you've ever found mummies for the 26th dynasty. You won't find it. You won't even find cartouches. You won't find anything. And so Immanuel Velikovsky says that the 19th dynasty and the 26th dynasty are the same. They didn't rule at the same time. They were the same dynasty. And it makes a huge, massive revision in Egyptian chronology. Like it's absolutely huge.
As far as I can tell, the Velikovsky hypothesis is about Venus, though. I don't think that's got to do with Egyptian. So I might have heard from it from the Big Bang Theory TV show. Maybe. I don't know where I've heard of his name before.
Yeah, I don't know if it has to do with Venus. I mean, his was mainly about the New Kingdom revision. And that's one that I've heard of. I've not heard about Venus, so.
I'll give you a link. According to Wikipedia, the Velikovsky hypothesis is that Venus has a reducing atmosphere, and that's been disproven because of the amount of carbon dioxide. It looks like like I was saying to Joel before, he was a polymath. He was into a whole heap of different things.
Yeah, his Ages in Chaos, and I can't remember what his other books are called, talk mainly about the New Kingdom.
Right. It sounds like he was into a lot of different things.
Well, he died in 1970, 1960 something or something like that. Yeah, he died a while ago. And all his followers like Dr. David Roll and Alan Montgomery, Eric Atchison and all that kind of stuff, they all kind of branched off from what he did because he had made a radical revision to Egypt's chronology. Yeah, you'll have to watch that video by Roger Waite because he goes into all the documents. He even lists the pages and all that kind of stuff. It's very cool. He does a really good job because he talks about like the Elemonor letters, the Ippur Papyrus. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
Not very well.
That's okay. Last time I spoke about this to Joel, he was like, can we just stick to rockets and science?
Yeah. Yeah, what Joel's interested in. And the rest of us go, yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, I'm a history nerd. I'm totally a history nerd. Like, I actually made an entire revisionist chronology or whatever with the Bible. I use the Bible as my basis, and then I revise Egyptian's chronology based on Immanuel Velikovsky and six other revisionists. And I'll tell you one thing: God is amazing because it all lines up with the Bible.
Yep.
It all lines up with the Bible. Like it.
Well,
when we get away from God, that's where we start to come into problems.
Yeah, we just end up in confusion.
Exactly.
I'll have to book you on my channel for a show. We'll have to organize a time.
That would be really fun. I've been doing a lot of stuff about I do a lot of stuff about ancient megalithic constructions and all that kind of stuff. And basically the history that I research is prior to King Solomon.
Yeah. Whereas I'm post-French Revolution.
Oh dear.
That's where I really get into my history.
Here was the problem. So
much. when I was in high school, they divided into modern history, which is the French Revolution and following, and ancient history, which is Middle Ages and Romans and going back further than that. But there was a lot more secularism within ancient history because they threw out the Bible and they told you all these lies about the timelines and stuff. So I rejected that and I went, I'll try modern history. But that was my second best subject. My best subject was biology. So in terms of school subjects, what they teach high schoolers, for me, it's biology, then modern history, then physics, I think was my next best one, then maths, then chemistry, if I remember correctly. out of the subjects that I did. But I love ancient history, and I would love to study it. Like if they had have given me a course of ancient history where I was studying it with the Bible as the basis, and then fitting all of the secular research into what the Bible says rather than throwing the Bible out, I would be very interested in that. And I've done a lot of that sort of research sort of myself, but not probably to the degree that I need to get, but I'm trying to catch up now.
No, that's actually pretty awesome because I use genetics sometimes when I talk about our Arphaxid up from the flood. Yeah. And I talk about the genetic entropy, but I do try to stay a little bit away from science because I'm a historian.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm trying to stay away from science, because science is amazing. Science absolutely proves God, 100%. But history absolutely proves God too. I did an ancient history presentation on my channel where I showed all the upper limits of even technology, civilization, all that kind of stuff. Have you ever heard of something called the Neolithic Revolution?
No, I have a vague idea what Neolithic means.
Yeah, so Neolithic is like when we were like what evolutionists say that we were hitting each other over the heads with like clubs and whatever.
Stone Age.
Yeah, exactly. And then suddenly, this is what they say in their textbooks. I mean, I was just in a college and they said this. Suddenly, became civilized. Got all these technologies and all this kind of stuff like science, mathematics, poetry, whatever. Suddenly. And it's called the Neolithic Revolution. And it has an upper limit of 5,500 BC. It's very interesting.
It reminds me of the Cambrian explosion in the geological column.
Yes.
Suddenly.
There was life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
this massive explosion of life suddenly.
Yeah, and when I
what was it? Seeded by aliens or something? Yes,
exactly.
The one true alien.
The one true alien. When I was in my ancient Greece class, my professor was talking about the Neolithic Revolution, and suddenly we had civilization, we had complex societies, we had all this stuff, and I'm like, suddenly we just had this, like we just came out of our caves and suddenly did this. So I looked up all of it, and you know what? It's all about the time of the flood.
Yeah.
And it sounds vaguely familiar to the Bible, which is
exactly what we expect.
Exactly what we would expect.
That's my forte. I love paralleling all the stuff in the Bible with modern scientific observations.
Yeah,
this is one of my favorite ones I use often with Jess Trow and Isaiah. They both basically about 43 years ago now, I guess, confirmed that Genesis is true.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the scientists you always mention, Joel, they say the same things that even I research in history. Say the same thing every single time, and it's like evolution is a modern thing. It's very modern.
Yeah, and it's very wrong.
And it's very wrong. And their whole reason for even trying to bring it up was to remove Moses from our teachings.
Deliberately. Yep.
Deliberately.
Charles Lyell.
Yes, Charles Lyell. Yes.
Yep.
Now we see how the astronomical evidence leads to a biblical view of the origin of the world. The details differ, but the essential elements in the astronomical and biblical accounts of Genesis are the same. The chain of events leading to a man commenced suddenly and sharply at a definite moment of time in a flash of light and energy. Robert Jastrow. That's what you guys reminded me of.
And who wrote that?
That is Robert Jastrow. He is the scientist that started NASA's Goddard Institute.
Nice.
1970. He wrote a whole book on it. It was shortly after Arnold Benzias discovered the cosmic background radiation.
Mm-hmm.
He said the best data we have concerning the Big Bang are exactly what I would have predicted had I nothing to go on but the 5 books of Moses, the Psalms, the Bible as a whole.
Amen.
I go into the details of that. So.
Yep, I have that list that you gave me a long time ago, and I still reference it.
Cool.
Seriously, especially when I found out that Immanuel Velikovsky was good friends with Einstein. I was like, I mean, I haven't actually read his books. I've only read the synopsises, and I'm very curious about when he thinks where the flood was, because he basically talks about the New Kingdom in Egypt. But I go by his revision in the New Kingdom. And then I've looked up a bunch of other things, but that's just amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I really you just touched on another fun subject. So, reading the books are very, very difficult because not only are they, kind of old and usually really long, but here's a classic example of one of a. So I bought Einstein's 3 biographies from there's a guy's named Herman's, and so I highlight the heck out of it. And I took a screenshot of one of them. We constantly hear how Albert Einstein, said that the Bible is just a collection of childish memory, whatever. And I found out that was fraud. And even the fraudulent letter that they claim doesn't even use the word childish in the original German. But then I'm reading this book and I find stuff like this. I agree wholeheartedly. The Bible is the greatest book ever written. I'm like, what?
What?
Why is this everywhere? It's just horrible. So yeah, so reading books is just a treasure trove out there of lost information.
Yeah, exactly. And and that's what I do in my ancient history studies. There's so much that people are not talking about and
Mhm.
ignoring. Like I always tell people, like, you guys, you might have heard of it, Graham, about the Nazca lines. Have you heard about the Nazca lines?
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell people, I'm like, listen, if you think that we came from monkeys, tell me when monkeys are going to make the Nazca lines.
Yep.
They can't even explain it. They have
No.
to use aircrafts today in order to even see the Nazca lines because they're so big and they're celestially aligned. How did they do
Yep.
it? You know what? It was really sad. I was reading a post about a historian that said that he suggested that they had hot air balloons, and they laughed at him. Because
Well, they
it's
had to.
out
They
because
had to
they're
just have something.
yeah. Well, it's
It's
because it's out of their paradigm. They
yeah.
can't imagine that we were actually like sophisticated back then. Because I always tell people, I'm like, listen, Noah knew how to build this amazing ark because God told him how to build it, right? That could withstand tsunamis and all that kind of stuff. In fact, our modern sea barges are built on the specifications of the ark.
Yep.
That means that these people, they knew what they were doing. So
Yep.
therefore, the Nazca lines, all of ancient history would make sense if we use the biblical narrative.
Yep.
All of it. And we would have these questions. We would have ancient aliens. We wouldn't have all these stupid rhetoric. It would make sense.
Yep.
You're reminding me how the Noah's Ark specification was double hulled, and then they added the leftover slag from their metal work for added ballast.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that I've done only some minor research on it. The double hull designs weren't common until like the 1900s.
Exactly. And I always tell people, I'm like, listen, we actually lost technology. We've actually regressed. Like when I was in a world history class in my secular college, they actually talked about how they actually had oceanic travel, meaning they could go across the ocean. It's a fancy term. It's stupid, but they had it. They lost it. We had it. We lost it. And then it came back, and people think that the Portuguese actually, thought they discovered transoceanic travel, but yet they have pharaohs back in ancient Egypt who have ships that they know. This is what they say. This is how they actually covered up. They'll say the ship could actually go transoceanic, meaning it could go across the ocean, but they didn't actually do it. I'm not kidding you. This is what they say in their posts. I'm like, you don't know that. Like you're making an assumption based on your paradigm because you don't want to believe that we have a God and that we have a central point in history, which means a human point, not an evolutionary point, but a central point in history. Like, look all across the world. How come we have all these flood myths all across the world? How come we have all these dragon myths, which are dinosaurs, all across the world? How come we have all the same megalithic structures that have the same stuff?
But Jesse, it's because people are stupid, and stupid people all believe the same thing. They believe in a flood. See how easy it is to do?
Yeah. evolutionists actually believe in a flood.
Yeah.
It's actually called the Lower Dryas or the Younger Dryas. Have you heard of that? Right?
No, I
Yeah.
haven't heard of that one. I
Yeah.
thought you were going to say on Mars, where there's very little water, they believe there was a flood, but they don't believe there was a flood on Earth, where there's heaps of water.
I know, right? I say that in one of my videos, actually. But no, they do, but they think that this flood took us several thousand years. It's called the Younger Dryas period, Drya. I think that's how
Right.
they spell it. It's called a Dryas period.
So because they're seeing so much evidence for a flood, they'll now believe in a flood, but they have to go, but it can't have been in 1 year.
No, it has to, and it has to be thousands of years before our flood. It has to be. They have to push it back. And they have to make sure that they push it back far enough so it doesn't, it can't coincide.
Yep.
It's absolutely amazing because when I look up a lot of this ancient history stuff, I'll read about the Younger Dryas periods, the Middle Dryas periods, or whatever, and all of them talk about a flood. But it took thousands of years, and it's like, you don't know this. You don't know this at all. You're making up a myth.
Yep. I can't remember who it was. When you believe in nothing, when you reject God, you don't believe in nothing. You will believe in anything. I think it was Chesterton, G.K. Chesterton. And so that's what they do.
But that absolutely makes sense. They'll believe in anything that doesn't have to do with God.
English Catholic scholar from around a similar time as C.S. Lewis. I think he might have been slightly before C.S. Lewis, around then. But a brilliant man. A lot of good stuff. I'm not a Catholic, but he's got a lot of good stuff.
Agreed. I quote him a few times for atheist debates. And one of those guys, either John or Praise or both, they were making a comment I heard earlier this week about how when they're debating, I think it was John and SFT, an SFT actually, when they're debating with other evolutionists and atheists, they'll get atheists to confess that God might exist, but it just can't be the Christian God.
Yeah.
It can be any God but Christ.
Yep.
But you know what cracks me up? Why aren't they arguing against Buddhists? Why aren't they arguing against Taoists?
Right.
Why aren't
Muslims?
yeah, exactly, Muslims. Why is it always Christians?
Because they have the same father.
You know what I think it is, Graham? I was watching this preacher actually from Australia. He's actually an Asian guy, but he was adopted in Australia, and he was, grew up an atheist or whatever, and decided that God probably did exist, a God, and he decided to try to find this God, through all the religions, Buddhism, Taoism, and all that kind of stuff. And he knows that there was this one particular person that if you mentioned his name, you were hated. You were hated. And it was the name of Jesus Christ.
Yep.
And he thought it was very interesting that this one name was so hated. He thought, you know what? I'm going to look this guy up. Okay. I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said, but basically I'm going to figure this out. And now he's a preacher.
What's his name?
That's
okay.
Great question. I haven't looked him up in a long time. Give me one
Excellent.
second. Let me look him up.
Yeah, I'd love to look him up and listen to him.
I can't think of his name. Shoot, that makes me feel really bad that I mentioned him and I can't think of his name.
Oh, well, if you think of it, let me know.
I definitely will. I cannot remember his name. I'm just gonna let you know I'm subscribed to like 250 people on YouTube, so I'm not so sure if I even recognize his name, but I thought that was really cool.
I understand that. I know someone who's like that.
Yeah, but when he gave that testimony, I thought, man, that's so cool, because it was just because of the name of Jesus Christ. Because if that was just so cool. You guys get it.
Hated by everything outside biblical Christianity because they're all in the one camp. They're all in the kingdom of darkness.
Exactly.
They all have the same father.
Well, exactly. And I thought that was pretty cool.
I'll mention this because they know that Jesus is right. They don't care about the others.
Yep.
Exactly. And that's why I thought it was so cool about, that he was looking up Jesus, because that was, That was the one that was named that was hated throughout the entire world. And that's so true, because when I see these atheists that go and, try to discredit us or whatever, it's like, why are you talking to Buddhists? I watched this one lady on one channel that was saying, you believe in a book that was written 2,000 years ago. I was like, okay, but you're a Buddhist and you're believing a book that was written. First of all, they don't even know. They know that Buddha did not write the book. First of all, he lived 300 years prior to that. And they don't even know Buddha was actually a real person. All right.
Yeah.
And you're going to believe in this religion? Like,
yeah. It's so stupid. They don't even think about what they're saying.
They don't. And we have
just anything can come out.
And we have far more evidence for Jesus. And actually, we have far more evidence for anything even prior to that. We really do. We have far more evidence because God gave us his word. And I always tell people, I'm like, listen, when you read the Old Testament is boring. It's hard to read. But God gave us his history. And he gave it to us for a reason, for many reasons. Because, shoot, this was 4,000 years ago when he gave this history, 3,500 years ago. And he already knew when he told Moses to write it, what our arguments would be today. He did.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yep.
It's so cool because we can find it today. And I actually have a video on my channel about Hercules and Samson. I actually think that Hercules is a legend of Samson.
I think Hercules is an amalgamation of Samson. So I've often wondered about the Achilles heel, because Hercules / Achilles. Why is there a heel that gets damaged? And where I think that heel goes back to? So I think the strength and the, wow, incredible. And I think maybe the Achilles heel is just metaphorical, but if it's literal, that goes back to Genesis 3:15. He will bruise your head and you will bruise his heel.
Oh, I never thought about that. That's actually very interesting. Yeah, I was actually looking at the life of Hercules and the life of Samson. Do you know how close they are?
Yeah, well, I think that's the amalgamation is that, most of the stories told about Hercules are based on Samson. But then this Achilles heel, we can understand it to be purely metaphorical, but they make it literal, that he gets an arrow shot into his heel. And so you have to wonder, where's that coming from? And that aspect, I think, comes from the prophecy about Christ.
Well,
but
that's interesting.
I don't know. That's speculation.
Oh, but that's actually very interesting. That's what I did in my video on my channel is, it was actually for an education class. And of course, my teacher did not want to give me a good grade. Because I was comparing Samson and Hercules and, talking about the biblical Samson and, because basically what I talked about was their trials, everything that they went through.
Yep.
And I compared all of them. It's actually, it's very interesting. And I never thought about Achilles. I'm going to have to look that up.
Achilles heel. Because Achilles is, Hercules and Achilles are the same. One's Greek and one's Roman name for the same person, isn't it?
True.
If I remember correctly, yeah.
Yeah,
and this is what I think has happened. I think you're absolutely right. I think a lot of the biblical stories and a lot of actual history has been corrupted into mythology over time. And that's one example. Another one would be, who was it? I'm just trying to remember now, but the sign that we have for medical things with the snake going around the pole, and people say, oh, that's based on Greek mythology. No. Greek mythology is based on Moses and the serpent in the wilderness.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And people say, oh, it's pagan. No. Well, it's pagan in the sense that it's a corruption of the original. But once again, it's something else that points back to Jesus. Everything ultimately points back to Jesus.
Absolutely.
Even the corruption of things, even what the pagans have, is just a corruption of the truth.
Absolutely. Every single time. It's the same thing with Samson. It's every single time. It's only a corruption every single time. I was trying to think of another. I can't think of what it is.
Well, someone was pointing out to me the other day that the war between Zeus and the Titans is based on the war between Theos, we would call him in Greek, but Jehovah, and the Nephilim.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, and here's the thing: a lot of the demigods that we read about in like Egyptian mythology, Greek mythology, and all that kind of stuff. Think about how long Arphax had lived. Salah, Eber, they. So if they were living that long in the first 3 generations, and in the next 3 generations, they were only living like 200 years, 240. And then the next generation after that, they were living like, 100 to 200 years. Those prior would have been put as gods because they were living so long. I mean, they lived like, I don't do math very well, but how many generations would be if you lived 450 years? That's what, like 4 generations, 5 generations. I don't even know how many it is.
Or even more. So someone's charted out from Adam, and you can see these pictures where they put the timeline, and then this one was born here, and this is how long they lived, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. I'll have to bring it up. But Adam was still alive when, I can't remember if it was Noah or his father. So that's like 10 generations.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine, if you look at all the patriarchs prior to the flood, most of them lived about 850 years, average, right?
Yep.
So then after the flood, they were about 400 years, 450, something like that. 3 generations. Then the next 3 generations are about 250 average. And then the next 3 generations after that are a little bit less than 200.
Yeah, there's a very sharp drop off. Oh, here we go.
Brief interruption from Paul.
We're going back to, is it legal to shoot a Scotsman in York with a bow and arrow?
I heard that.
Because we were talking to Paul earlier about this. He said it was still on the books. So what's it say? Does it say that it is still legal or not?
Yes.
It is. It is.
That was a worthy share.
I was listening to a radio show a number of years ago when I first got out of the Marine Corps, and they were talking about how there's a law in Denver, Colorado that says that women can't wear a red dress after 9 p.m. And they haven't changed it for 90 years because it became irrelevant, but no one changed it. We actually still have that law. Well, as of 10 years ago, we still have that law. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a law like that. You can choose. Yeah, shoot whoever.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy.
I think I'm 1/4 Scotsman, so I don't know if that counts or not.
Yeah.
I'll shoot you. It's totally cool if I had a bow and arrow.
I think I'm more Scottish than any of the other 3. Last we checked.
I'm a Heinz 57. I don't even know what I am.
Yeah. Well, I was telling Paul earlier, we used to think that like our family lines are fairly even mix between Welsh, Scottish, Irish, and English. But my mother's done some genetic research, and they conflate Scots and Irish because there was a lot of crossing the channel in at least Northern Ireland and Scotland. And so it seems like they're not able to distinguish clearly between Scottish and Irish. But so it looks like I'm more Scottish Irish than the other 2.
Yeah, I think with me being American, my history is very, very obscure.
You're a lot more multicultural or multiracial than Australia is. Australia has a shorter history and a more limited, like it's more the British Isles than other places.
Well, it's kind of funny because I actually think that Australia has a much deeper history because, I said, I'm a history major. So when they talk about
if you ignore white settlement, then yes, it goes on for a very, very long time.
Well, so it's actually more about, so when they talk about the land bridge theory about, ancient peoples coming over the land bridge and whatever, and coming down into North America and South America and whatever. The numbers, when it comes to like the dates or whatever, are totally off. The oldest structure in North America, and I'm talking about like the area of America, like North America, is 900 AD. Remember that date. In Middle America, where Mexico is, the oldest structure that they, and even it's very disputed, is 1700 BC. The oldest structure in Peru is 3100 BC. And there's another disputed one in Chile, South Chile, of 6400 BC. So how could the land bridge theory be accurate, right? So my theory is that those that came to South America, like Peru and Chile and stuff like that, actually came from Australia. They came from East Africa, and they were basically, they're Polynesian.
Yep.
Have you ever watched Dr. Jensen's 23-part series on Answers in Genesis for rewriting human history?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should watch it. The genetics actually show this theory to be correct. Have you ever seen something called the Olmec heads?
Oh, do you know?
OLMEC?
Sorry, do you know jungle jargon?
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Jargon.
So I follow him a little bit. I don't know how much that ties in, but yeah, I have heard of Dr. Jensen. You know, on SFT's channel, I think he's been on there and a few other places.
And he actually knows a lot about the genetic stuff. And actually, I've talked to him a lot about it, and he agrees with me. Like the genetic and the Y chromosome, those that are in South America have more of the Polynesian and the West genetics. The Middle America, okay, so Middle America is a little bit kind of confusing, because if you look at the Olmec heads morphologically, meaning what they look African. And when I read, and even when I was in my secular school, when they talk about the Olmec civilization, which is supposedly supposed to be the mother culture or whatever of all of the Americas, North and South America, they suddenly arrived. Suddenly there was this civilization, and they look nothing like the rest of the Americans. Like, just look up the Olmec heads. They look African. They do. They're massive 40-ton stones that are carved with African heads in Middle America. And then North America, like I said, like the oldest structure besides campfires with something called Clovis heads that they pair with mammoths. That's the reason why they say it's like 7,000 years old. That's all they have. But yet the oldest structure is the Taos Indians, and I forget what the other one is. It's 900 AD.
Yep.
The other ones are BC. So
Yep.
how could they come over the land bridge? That's the reason why I think that Australia has a much older history than people think. We just didn't discover Australia until what, I don't know, it was like 1400, 1300. When does it say that we discovered it? So-called, like,
well, the British settled it. The Dutch were on the west coast of Australia in the 1600s, but the British settled the east coast of Australia. So that the first Europeans to actually come on the continent and stay were the late 1800s. 1776 was the first British settlement, and before that.
Yeah, and the thing is that I think that Australia was settled far before that. Because I think that they came over from Africa or South India and all that kind of stuff. And they came over and they went to Peru. That's the reason why Peru looks so old.
Yeah.
In fact, here's something very interesting for you. Here's the oldest flood myth and a famine. One right after another. It's called the Caral. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. It's Caral. It's the Caral civilization. They're dated to 3100 BC. They're 180 kilometers from Cusco Valley, which is where Sacsayhuaman is, where those like really cool walls are, where the polygonal masonry is or whatever, they actually have a global flood and a famine right after that. How cool is that? Because in the Bible, what do we have? We have a global flood, and then we have a famine in Joseph's day.
Yep.
Isn't that cool? And they have this,
Well,
and it's written in stone. It's not like something that they're interpreting or whatever. It's written in stone. It's carved into the stones in the Carol civilization in Peru.
right.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah. Well, that people that reject the history. I mean, it's not amazing to me. It's it's like,
Right.
yeah, well, of course. I mean, I expect that. But yeah, people that reject the Bible, they'll never see that connection because they don't want to see it. And here's the other thing that I would say as well is that I hear from these people all the time. Oh, yeah, but they didn't have the technology to travel across the sea. Well, that's because see the circular reasoning. The circular reasoning is the Bible can't be true. And so let's assume the Bible's not true to say that they don't have the technology. But if you assume that the Bible is true, then they do have the technology because they just survived a flood using that technology.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. That's my premise. That's absolutely my premise. So that one that I put earlier, Joel, because you've seen that one. That's my engineering presentation, but I turned it into a video. That's literally my premise. Like, how could these people have all this technology and it's all across the world? It's the same technology all across the world. How do we have pyramids all across the world, ziggurats, polygonal, ashlar, and the other masonry? We have all that all across the world. How's that possible? Unless we come from a common ancestor. I'm not talking about an ape. I'm talking about Noah.
Right.
If we
common
come
technology
from,
base, right?
huh?
A common technology base.
Yeah, exactly. Because if Noah could build a giant boat that could, withstand all that kind of stuff, they pass that stuff on. Because if you think about it, if all of us were like, say, picked up and put back like 4,000 years ago, would we not want to give them showers, some kind of technology? Well, I kind of think that Ham, Shem, and Japheth probably did the same thing to their descendants. They probably gave them some kind of technologies. Technology in itself is not evil. It's how you use it that makes it evil.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Have you looked at the guy on Is Genesis History who goes back to the Tower of Babel and Nimrod, and goes through the secular writings as well, looking for, okay, where was the Tower of Babel? Because there's a lot of places that get called Babel, but he finds this one place that fits perfectly with what the Bible says. Have you seen that one?
I have not. Can you link it for me, please?
I'll see if I can find it.
I would love to see that.
Dyson is the man that Princeton University said was the only man in the world that could fill Albert Einstein's bunny slippers. They hired him to replace Einstein when he passed away. Technology is a gift of God. After the gift of life, it is perhaps the greatest of God's gifts.
Absolutely.
It is the mother of civilizations, of arts, and of sciences. Amen.
Yeah,
Dr.
I would like to see that.
Dr. Douglas Petrovich. I'll grab the link and I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, because I've done a lot of research on it, and honestly, they don't know where the Tower of Babel is. Like they have a few locations that they think it is, but they really don't know because it's not there anymore.
I'm liking the research I'm reading out of Israel about how there's a place in the Sudan that matches the name of one of the cities in the Bible, and there's even a large hill that there's suspecting may have been the rubble remains of the tower.
Can you link that, Joel?
There's one article I found publicly, but otherwise it's just people I listen to. But let me see if I can find it for you. And then the other thing that was convincing was that there was a reference about it being between two rivers, which most traditional archaeologists talk about Iraq, the Euphrates and the whatever other river. But there's suggestions it could have been. Thank you. There's a white and a blue Nile River as well that meet in the Sudan. See if I can find it. I think it's a Answers in Genesis thing.
So, have you guys ever heard of the Temple of Baalbek?
I don't think so.
Rings a vague bell.
So it's actually so if you look it up, secularists will say that the Romans built it, Well, the Romans built on top of something that's a foundation. Now, when I looked up Jewish scholars say that the legends say, and I actually follow legends. I like to read the legends. And the legends actually say that Nimrod actually built this foundation. And it's a massive foundation. I'm talking about these stones. These are the ones that I was talking about, Joel, in my presentation that are 1,800 tons. They are massive column stones. They're called trilitholons or whatever.
In South America?
No. It's in Israel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's called the Temple of Baalbek in Lebanon. Well, I'm sorry, not Lebanon. I forget where it's at. But anyways, they think that might have actually been the foundation stones for the Tower of Babel. But it's far from Mesopotamia, where the city of Ur is. So they're not so sure if that could be, the Tower of Babel, because the Tower of Babel, they try to put it in Mesopotamia, but they've never found it. It's very interesting. And in that video that I linked, I show the trilithon at Baalbek, the Temple of Baalbek. It's also known as the stone of the pregnant woman and the stone of the south, the stone of the south or whatever, and it's 1,800 tons. It's amazingly big. Like it's absolutely huge.
All right.
I'm gonna have to go. I've enjoyed this and good to catch you, Jesse, and Joel, and everyone in the chat. And I hope we can catch up again. I try to live stream about daily, so if you're subscribed, hopefully you'll get the notification.
I did.
And
I did subscribe. Yep, I did subscribe because I gotta go to bed too. It's almost 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. and I gotta go to bed.
Same.
Well, it's 2:41 p.m. and I feel like going to bed.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. I enjoyed talking to you guys tonight.
See yous.
All right.
Have a good night.
Y'all have a good rest of your evening and day. All right. So I'm gonna log out too. That was wonderful. The Lord was really bringing us together to just have fun talking about things without fighting. So hope everybody else enjoyed that. And thank you, Paul, for blessing us coming in for a little while as well. Yeah, I'd like to have more of these. So you guys have a wonderful evening and a wonderful day. God bless.